So my name's Scott Davis. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for VMware's End User Computing Unit, recently renamed. And I'm going to give you a talk today on where I see the future of end user computing going, and in particular technologies that VMware is driving that you're going to hear about during this, throughout this conference. So disclaimer, I am definitely talking about features that are under development that may or may not actually come to fruition. So there's no commitment on any product delivery, et cetera, yada, yada. Okay, so what I'm going to talk to today is a vision of the world of end user computing 5 years hence. Okay, I'm going to give you VMware's end user computing vision at a high level. I'm going to drill into View 4.5, which we are launching. You actually are getting a preview since it's officially launching tomorrow morning, but they put this session on Monday. So you'll get the news a whole, 18 hours early. I'm then going to talk about some future things that we're going to be talking about here as well. Unified application management between SaaS and Windows, cloud-based applications, and what cloud computing means for end-user-based computing, and our forward-looking vision around a virtual workspace in the cloud. So let's get into some of the details here. So what do users demand today? Well, it's not just Windows, and it's not just a laptop. Okay? The computing devices are changing very quickly. Okay? It's all different device types, like these. Okay? All kinds of applications, okay, whether they're web apps, SaaS apps, Windows apps, Mac apps, cell phone apps, mobile smartphone apps. And diverse access. We expect access from anywhere and access to the same applications and data from different devices. Everything is not tethered to one physical device anymore. This is what users expect, okay? And when you think about the desktop and desktop computing, there are multiple trends that are basically pulling apart what we used to think of as the monolithic Windows desktop. One of them is these devices and the different ways we interact with applications. Legacy apps tied to the endpoint, SaaS apps in the cloud, mobile apps with graphics front ends to SaaS apps, private cloud, public cloud, all of the above. Some of the apps are running in the enterprise data center. Many apps for consumers are running in the public cloud. How do we bring these things together? These are examples of how the desktop is being pulled apart by the cloud forces. Okay? So when I say cloud computing for consumers, because consumers are really driving these trends, what do I actually mean? Okay? Well, number one, a richer, better user experience beyond Windows, whether we're talking about iPads, other tablets, or smartphones. It's simple to use. We have simple applications that we download on demand. Okay, and they run on multiple devices. We expect to get to our environment not just from Windows desktops, but through web browsers, from thin clients, from thick clients, and mobile platforms. Available and reliable, another trait of cloud computing for consumers. You don't think about whether your app's going to be available or not. They're always on, assuming you have connectivity. Okay, always available, transparent backup and sync, ubiquitous access from anywhere. Small, and it's personalized. I can run what I want, whenever I want. Small, engaging native apps that do useful things. Pay-as-you-go model. You pay for what you use, you don't pay for what you don't use. And excitement and anticipation. There's always new stuff. You're checking constantly for new applications. Consumers are already living this ultimate personal cloud experience in their personal lives. Whether you're talking about how you use Facebook or Dropbox or Twitter or any of these applications, that's what people use today in their personal life. Okay? The challenge for today's enterprise, though, is delivering a unified experience in this kind of world. What do people expect from their business apps? Well, they expect all these same things. They expect this consumer cloud experience from IT. So how does IT deliver consumer-level simplicity with enterprise-ready security and compliance? So end users expect one thing, IT has to deliver another. There's a pressure to maintain, okay, keep to budgets, keep to security, compliance, business continuity services, they keep the corporate crown jewels, all the legacy applications, Windows client server apps aren't going away anytime soon, and manageability. There's also pressure to innovate on IT as well. So the enterprise really has two options in this rapidly changing world. They can do nothing, okay? And what eventually happens is you wind up with vastly increased management costs, lower productivity, and you have end users working around you, okay, bringing devices in anyway. I don't think IT originally sanctioned, I know they didn't at VMware, originally sanctioned iPads, but people like me brought them in anyway and wanted to use them. And that's happening all over corporate America, okay? And you wind up with decreased security as people do file sharing insecurely over Dropbox or a technology like that instead of using the corporate environment. And you wind up with retention and recruitment issues because you get portrayed, your company gets portrayed as a Luddite, not being up with the times, not using what people in their 20s and 30s want to use. The other alternative is to move beyond and embrace, okay? Cost reduction and containment, increase end-user flexibility, increase security and compliance, and flexible, reliable service delivery, okay, for enterprise apps in this world of the consumer cloud. Okay? And that's VMware's vision going forward for end-user computing. Simply put, deliver the consumer cloud experience for the enterprise while maintaining for the enterprise applications corporate policies, business SLAs, whether I'm talking about availability, performance, security, and a flexible service delivery model at a lower cost. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do two things. One, we're going to fully embrace cloud computing. We're not going to fight City Hall. And we're going to address end-user requirements and do so in an evolutionary way. We're not going to forget about Windows. We're not going to forget about Windows applications that you need to run for your business. But at the same time, we're going to deliver platforms that embrace cloud computing and cloud computing applications, both personally and corporate ones, and be able to run them side by side on various endpoints. So what's this cloud buzzword again? Okay, well, let's go into this in a little more detail. On the IT side, cloud computing is about a flexible infrastructure, entirely virtualized data center, all hardware going into pools of resources that can be applied to your applications on demand. It's completely elastic, management automation, and it enables things to run in both the private cloud in corporations, in the public cloud from hosting providers, and in a hybrid cloud that joins the two together. Okay? And these are the things that IT cares about. What users care about are those consumer cloud options that I mentioned earlier. They care about getting access to their apps from anywhere, pay by consumption, self-service, being able to run whatever apps I want and tailor my systems to myself. But what does it really mean? Well, I'm a user. I don't really care about the IT details. Don't talk to me about all this cloud nonsense. Okay, what it means is it's always on and it's fast. Okay, great user experience. It means an application catalog. Okay, in other words, I can download apps anytime I want to. I just click on them and run them. I control when I update them. Okay, if I don't like them, I delete them. Okay, I don't worry about the underlying platform being corrupted. We'll come back to that in a moment. And I can use any cool device when I want to. I can upgrade to the latest iPhone or the latest BlackBerry or the latest Android phone whenever I want to, or the latest tablet, maybe a Cisco CS. So VMware is embarking on this new end-user computing journey, and there are three phases for it, and I'm going to talk about all three of them, okay? And in particular, we are very much launching at this conference the first phase, which is about modernizing the desktop. And we're going to give you a real active peek of technology in the second category on unifying user management. So the three stages are as follows. Modernizing Windows, and I'll tell you all about what that means in a few minutes. Then a unified user environment, bridging legacy Windows applications to new cloud architectures. So SaaS applications and endpoint device applications, user data in the cloud, all melded together under policy and control. And then our ultimate vision of end-user computing, our collaborative user workspace in the cloud. Okay, so let's talk about modernizing the desktop. So why do people deploy View today? Okay, I'm assuming a lot of you know what View is. Server-hosted computing, taking Windows client OSs and running them in the data center and remoting the graphics. Well, the reason customers deploy these technologies is, number one, it delivers all of the operational benefits that you see for server virtualization. So rapid provisioning, being able to create a new user or a whole new organization of users for M&A with a click of the mouse, okay, because you're no longer installing many things excuse me, on physical endpoints or hardware. Business continuity, being able to recover from all forms of failures. Now, of course that means, for a server-hosted desktop, VMware HA and FT. In other words, if your server goes down, the virtual desktops that are running on it want to be able to fail over, restart seamlessly on other systems. But it means a lot more than that, because there's this thing called clients as well. And you know what? These laptop clients and desktops and tablets, they're a lot more fragile than servers are. They take a lot more abuse, okay? They're portable. You move them around. They have less expensive components. They suffer a lot more abuse. They get dropped, they get lost, they get stolen, they get dropped, sometimes unintentionally. And when they break, having everything about your workload, your applications and your data, okay, preserved in a virtual machine. So with the ease of a file copy, it can be recreated on another endpoint, is a key value prop here. Disposable endpoints with saving context, okay? Flexibility in management, okay? Being able more easily to provision, add applications on the fly. Things for specific use cases as well, such as healthcare and Follow Me desktops, a big deal. Federal teleworkers, like this H1N1 pandemic that happened. So these are all reasons that people deploy the modernized desktops. Last but not least is Win 7 migrations. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Win 7 migrations is a great use case for virtualizing your desktop infrastructure. In particular, we're also going to talk about at this conference a technology that's available both separately and as part of View called ThinApp. And ThinApp is application virtualization. And the Win 7 migration gives a great use case for ThinApp. Okay? Not too many people deployed Vista. Okay? There were many reasons for that, but one of them was that it had huge incompatibilities with applications from XP. Well, guess what? If you skip Vista and just go to Win 7, it's great. It has great compatibility with Vista, but it has all those same incompatibility problems with XP. One of the great uses of ThinApp is to separate out and virtualize the applications first on XP and then deploy them virtually. So you can actually, we can virtualize and help you with virtualizing IE6 and IE7 applications that have been prevalent in enterprises and run those on Win 7. It's the only technology out there that lets you do that. So Win 7 migrations is another great reason to be virtualizing your desktops. So we have a protocol that we've created with a partner company called PC over IP. And we originally launched this with View 4.0. And so Teradici is our partner company. They created the original protocol. What VMware has done is we've provided our expertise in virtualizing hardware into this. And we've created a optimized virtual graphics stack in conjunction with Teradici that's part of View. And this is the only stack designed from the ground up for virtual desktops. It's not a warmed over technology from the 1980s that's been renamed. Okay, not to mention any names. And it's got a lot of very valuable, unique attributes to it. Okay, number one, the way we virtualized it is a multi-layer affair. We are actually hooked into the graphics stack at a high level, and we know what sections of the screen are associated with different content types. We know what's live motion video, we know what's graphics, we know what's text, we know what's the background picture of your kids, okay? And we're actually applying different compression ratios, different codecs, and different network priorities based on the section of the screen, okay? We're also doing server-side rendering. This is a big advance, okay? And Microsoft's going down that path as well with their Remote FX thing. We have these wonderful Nehalem Intel CPUs. Let's use them for something. The math behind graphics rendering. We actually have customers that are now doing very advanced graphics applications and remoting the graphics because the fact that the protocol is remote makes less of a difference relative to not having a GPU than having much more heavyweight processors to do all the multidimensional math that's behind the scenes. So that's another great advance here. It also makes the client simpler and enables zero footprint clients. The protocol is also adaptive. We're measuring the bandwidth and latency on the wire, and we are adapting in real time. If you're running on a LAN and you get great bandwidth, great. We're going to give you a lossless experience. Okay, richest experience as quick as possible. If you're on a WAN, we're going to detect that, and we're going to ratchet up the compression. So instead of getting the HD treatment, you're going to get the analog TV treatment, but you're going to get your content and it's usable, and it'll throttle back the bandwidth. The goal here is to give you the richest user experience possible with the least amount of management. No managing codecs on the endpoints, as other technologies would have you do. Also, PC over IP makes use of UDP, okay, not TCP/IP. Now, why would we do that? TCP/IP, that's a great protocol, isn't it? It's how the web is built. Well, absolutely. Of course it's how the web is built. Web transactional workloads absolutely want to use TCP/IP. It's absolutely the wrong thing to do for a graphics stack, though. If you think about a graphics stack that has the intelligence to know what content is where, if you're using TCP/IP, okay, what you're going to get is you're going to get a virtual circuit, meaning if a packet gets dropped or lost, we're going to freeze the entire pipe and wait for that packet to be retransmitted. If the packet has to do with some of the bits of the background picture of your kids and not the window that has focus in front, that's a really silly trade-off. You don't want to wait a few hundred milliseconds to get that packet retransmitted. That's why we use UDP, a datagram protocol, and retransmission and parallelism is all controlled in the graphics engine, optimizing the experience. All of these are reasons why PC over IP is the best user experience available for remote desktops. Now, continuing on modernizing the desktop and what we're adding here, okay, to modernize the Windows environment. Let's give you a peek at what we're launching this month. So I'm going to talk to you today about View 4.5. View 4.5 is going to be available in September to customers. It's locked and loaded. And first, let's talk about a question that I get asked all the time. What's the difference between a server VM and client virtualization? Are they the same thing or are they different? Well, it all depends on your perspective. In one dimension, they're the same thing. They're both about encapsulating and isolating all aspects of what you're doing in software from the underlying physical hardware used to accomplish the task. And that concept is the key behind all of VMware's virtual machine technology. Okay, so in that way, they're the same. However, they're also quite different. Server workloads are fairly static. You're typically running one application in a VM and the support tasks associated with it, and they're typically stateless and well-formed and controlled by IT. Desktops are anything but. Desktops, clients, they're chaotic. You're running tons of applications, some of them ad hoc, they're stateful, the registry gets updated all the time, files get updated, patches come out all the time. It's a totally uncontrolled environment. For that reason, it actually means that client virtualization or desktop virtualization is actually more complicated and needs some additional technologies. So what we've been busily creating is a collection of layers, okay, best of breed encapsulation and isolation technologies to segregate layers within a Windows VM and enable you to manage them separately, all through the same one view console. So we call this modernizing the desktops or modular desktops. And in View 4.5, there are 3 layers associated here. One of them is the operating system, which we call View Composer, and I'll talk to you about some additions we have there. Application virtualization, our thin app technology, and of course personas, user data and user settings. Okay? And being able to deliver these desktops from the private cloud. Now, in View 4.5, well, in 4.0, we had 2 ways to deliver desktops to an endpoint. You could have thin clients with remoting the graphics, and you could have thick desktops where you'd run the image remotely and still remote the graphics. Well, we have a new technology that we're launching in 4.5 called View Client Local Mode. View Client Local Mode, instead of running a View Managed VM in the data center, okay, and remoting the graphics, you can now migrate that VM, check it out, if you will, and migrate it to a thick endpoint like a laptop, and now run it when you're disconnected. It's completely encrypted, safe and secure. Changes are replicated back to the data center, okay, and it's the ideal solution for what we call bring your own PC or employee-owned IT. Very big hot button with corporate IT today. So that's part of the first version of this is part of View 4.5. Now, there's also a lot of talk in the industry about client hypervisors. So I want to say that View Client Local Mode for Bring Your Own PC is not a Type 1 hypervisor solution. It's a Type 2 solution, and that's extremely intentional. The reason it's intentional is that at VMware, we have a wealth of technologies for virtualizing endpoints, and we want to apply the best technology that we have to the right use case. For a Bring Your Own PC or employee-owned IT, which we heard from customers was the #1 need for thick clients running disconnected, okay? A client hypervisor is a poor choice. The reason it's a poor choice is because the hardware winds up being severely limited and constrained. And secondly, even if you have, if an employee, contractor, consultant, usually they're already going to have a laptop and they want to run their corporate image on that laptop. So how do you do that? Well, let's assume it meets the HCL. Okay, so it meets the HCL. Are they going to take that system, bring it into IT and say, oh yes, I trust you, wipe it clean, reinstall to the bare metal a new hypervisor with the corporate image, and I trust that you'll get back my image in working condition with the OS licensed and with all my apps and data preserved? I don't think so. Okay, so that's why we built a Type 2 solution here, which uses our VMM technology to put a view-managed, isolated, encapsulated, IT-controlled image running side by side with whatever personal OS you have running on the base platform. So this is View Client Local Mode. The first version is Windows on Windows. There'll be a subsequent version for Mac. So that brings more use cases to the world of View with 4.5. So our goals with 4.5 is both to go deeper, add scalability and management, and go wider with embracing mobile users, as I just said. So View 4.5 will be officially launched tomorrow, as I said, timing, fun and games. This will be talked about in Steve and Paul's keynote tomorrow. It's the industry's first virtual desktop solution for server-hosted desktops that enables both online and offline solutions. Not the first announced, but the first shipping. So, and industry's best user experience, simplified management, a whole bunch of stuff I'm going to talk about in a minute, and expanded use cases. So in this talk, there's other talks on 4.5 today where you're going to, at the conference, where you're going to hear details on all of the technologies here. I just put one slide here because I'm going to talk more about futures in a minute, and 4.5 is now present as of tomorrow. So I'm just going to rattle off some of the things that are in it here. So for user experience, I mentioned View Client with local mode. There's a native Mac client as part of it, which is something we were lacking for a while. We've added some of the missing pieces to PC over IP, so there's now integrated smart card support for Follow Me desktops. Great scalability. Under the covers, we've made a lot of changes both to the vSphere plumbing and to the View connection broker plumbing to be able to create now 10,000 VM pods. And that's using 7 clustered connection brokers in order to get there. But you can now have, per pod, per single management console, 10,000 virtual desktops. We already were acclaimed for having the easiest to use user interface. Even one of our esteemed critics, Brian Madden, called View the giant easy button for desktop virtualization. But we're not sitting on our laurels. We actually have a completely revamped user interface that's part of 4.5, carefully orchestrated for workflows from our customers. So there's a unified flex-based console with a lot more capabilities in it. Role-based administration is one of them. Okay, integrated ThinApp entitlement, so you can now take ThinApp images, put them to a pool, and provision them to pools of desktops with one click of the mouse directly from the View console. Those were separate before. Tiered storage support. This is something really important and could actually have a whole topic in and of itself. We've expanded View Composer so that you can now, instead of having a monolithic OS image, you can now split the storage into functional units and apply it to different LUNs. You can separate out the read-only gold master image from the redo log snapshot from the paging and swap file and put them all on different tailored LUNs. What this lets you do is most cost-effectively apply the right storage with the right performance characteristics and the right SLAs to the right part of the workload. In particular, what we see customers doing with this is, number one, using flash drives, SSDs, for the gold master image to avoid boot and I/O storms. Number two, we see them putting the page and swap file on transient storage, like local disks on ESX servers, because there's no reason to put that on the SAN and bloat the image, bloat the base master image with those, because when you reboot a desktop, you're going to re-init the paging file anyway. So it gives you much better tuned, more finely tuned storage. Full Win7 support, yay. Both 32-bit and 64-bit. I mentioned the IE6 use case. Greater density from a variety of technologies. We are also launching at this conference, although I'm not talking about it a lot today, vShield Edge Server, which is offloaded antivirus. So now on your desktops, you don't have to have antivirus agents embedded in each of the VMs and deal with the overheads associated with this. Very similar to what we did several years ago on the server side with VMware Consolidated Backup, to make a better way through virtualization to do antivirus. You can now run antivirus as a protected virtual appliance with the VM Safe APIs, and it now works for real-time I/O, so it can do live scans of your VMs offloaded out of the guests. So that's 4.5 in a nutshell. I knew I could do it on one slide. So let's talk about it a little more. Let's talk about the next phase of our journey. Unifying user management. A bridge between legacy and cloud architectures. So as you know today, customers are running tons of SaaS apps, all different types of applications, data stored in different places in the cloud. Can't tell you how many people are actually even at VMware. Okay, I mean, we were using, when I was making these slides, we were building these slides up on Dropbox on the web, not using a shared corporate LAN environment. It's just easier, okay? And when things are easier, they get used, okay? So trends today. What are some of the key trends that you need to pay attention to for end-client computing? One of them is this diversity of hardware, okay? This is a no-brainer. And of course, the related diversity of operating systems. I mean, each of these new devices have specific operating systems involving them. And there's new application types. There's traditional thick client apps, there's SaaS apps, and there's something in between I'm going to talk about in a moment. There's something new called HTML5. This is a new web standard, next generation of HTML. But it's got a whole slew of composite web mechanisms as part of it. And when you add them up with what's already there around AJAX and HTML4 and technologies like that, it's really a new client application architecture, different from the client-server architectures of the past. Some of the mechanisms that are part of HTML5 are local persistent storage out of a browser, offline cache for applications. A proprietary earlier version of this was the Google Gadgets technology. GPS, okay? How many people know how GPSs work in all these endpoint devices and how you can access them from SaaS devices? Well, there's actually a higher level virtualized API. You don't expose GPS devices, even though each one of these has a different GPS device. There's actually a web API that says, give me your coordinates. And it sends back the coordinates of where you are, okay, as numbers, okay? Higher level of virtualization. And native video, okay? This has gotten a lot of attention in the press, competing with proprietary formats like, Adobe Flash or Silverlight, things like that. Non-codecs. Zero-touch clients get enabled with HTML5 as well. More and more, not having to install things on the client is really important, not having to modify the clients. How are apps being constructed? Because app development is going on quite a bit. One of the interesting things is I talk to customers like about Win 7, and Win 7 is certainly popular, getting deployed all over the place, really driving a hardware refresh in the industry. Notice I said hardware refresh, because Win 7 actually has all new application technologies and frameworks built into them. But it's kind of interesting. When I ask customers, so are you doing anything with the new application frameworks? Are you doing anything with those changes that have been inherited from Vista? I get the same answer every place. No, nobody's doing anything with them. It's because the industry has moved on. SaaS is the way that applications are getting constructed, with application frameworks like SpringSource, like Java, like Ruby on Rails. These are the languages of the web and the way applications are getting constructed with web languages. Now, I'm going to correct a misnomer here, which is that SaaS, everybody thinks SaaS, software as a service, means browser apps. It actually doesn't. It means software as a service with a custom presentation. The presentation could be a browser, but it can also be these little thick apps that you download for Android and iPhones and iPads. Those are just as much SaaS apps as browser-based apps are. As a matter of fact, my perfect example I'm going to use is from someone whose name's associated with SaaS apps, Google, okay? You use Google Earth on here? That's not a browser app. That's a rich client app that's making use of the graphics hardware on the endpoint, okay? So SaaS does not mean browser, okay? SaaS means that the bulk intelligence of the app is executing on one or more or an entire grid of systems in the cloud and delivering data or a vision to the endpoint. Okay? What are some of the market trends here? Well, you can throw statistics up the wazoo, but SaaS is taking over the industry by storm. Okay? By 2013, projections show that corporate IT is 50-50. VMware is already close to that. I mean, we use technologies like Salesforce.com, for example, for for our sales folks. So lots of applications are already moving to SaaS. Consumer is much greater, okay? And more and more you'll see the Windows client-server era, that those apps become legacy. They continue to be used, but SaaS is really where all the action is, where new stuff is being created. Macs are on fire. I use a Mac. Everyone wants Macs. I hear those constantly. You're going to see VMware embracing those very well. 60% of enterprise PCs today use some form of desktop virtualization technology. That doesn't just mean server-hosted desktops, by the way. We're talking about app virtualization or older app publishing, etc. So app architectures are in flux, and the relationship of applications to where the data is located, what the format of the data is, and how data sharing is accomplished is changing also. No more COM objects sharing data like we had on the Windows platform with shared data. The web is more about isolating the data and having the data associated specifically with the app or stored in a common format such as XML that can be read and parsed by multiple applications. Services are really the new platform, and I had to throw this one in. Connectivity, I don't know if we're going to get to ubiquity in 5 years from now, but it'll certainly be better than it is today. So what about virtualization? What does virtualization have to do with all this? Well, virtualization is a software technique. And virtualization doesn't just mean virtual machines. It means a well-formed layer of encapsulation and isolation between two entities. Okay? And that encapsulation and isolation is critical for this new world of end-user computing. Not necessarily VMs. Okay? VMs have their place, but it's not a one-size-fits-all. But encapsulation and isolation is prevalent everywhere. And typically, when virtualization at a certain layer comes out, it's about adding a level of abstraction. And typically, initially, you trade performance for reduced complexity and ease of management. But over time, performance catches up, we take it for granted, and nobody thinks about building technologies the old hard-coded way. And there's numerous examples of this throughout the history of the computer industry. I can go all the way back to things like virtual memory management. I'm dating myself. Or to more recent things like SOAP protocols, which is actually virtualized networking protocols instead of binary packets. These are examples of virtualization technologies. People don't normally associate those with virtual machines. And it's a building block for cloud computing. It's the only technology that lets you preserve legacy environments, continue to run existing infrastructures, while at the same time rolling out new cloud infrastructures. That's why virtualization is critical here. So, it's all about the applications, though, at the end of the day. Less about the operating system. Operating systems are getting diversified. Hardware platforms are getting diversified. It's about the applications I want to run and how I want to run them. Okay? There's application publishing, both legacy flavors, like from Microsoft or Citrix, as well as newer flavors for SaaS applications. And it doesn't mean just Windows applications, it goes to those two vendors, but it actually means all flavors of applications. You know, Linux applications, Mac applications, etc. It's not tied to one thing. It's a technique. Okay? And of course, SaaS. There's also app virtualization. And VMware has a great platform here for app virtualization with our ThinApp technology. Isolate all aspects of the application from the underlying operating system and from other applications running on the same platform. And we count on this in the cloud world. We count on encapsulation and isolation. You don't typically worry about when you load a new app onto your iPad, iPhone, or Android. They're naturally isolated, partitioned from other instances of that application on the platform. ThinApp brings that to the Windows environment. Complete isolation, zero client install. Deleting the file means the app is gone. And this technology is completely complementary to application publishing. Okay. So, we also have a technology called Zimbra. And Zimbra is part of our story as well. People think of Zimbra as an email platform, because it is. It's a SaaS-based email platform. And from that point of view, you can think of it as a competitor to Exchange, except it's really designed for cloud-oriented. And we love Exchange. We have a huge business virtualizing Exchange running on vSphere, and we intend to continue that. But Zimbra is really a cloud-oriented infrastructure. And what people don't know is that this is actually running on millions and millions of paid instances on the web. Okay? Lots of large customers are based on this Zimbra technology for email services. It's a completely scalable scale-out architecture, okay, that actually includes a independently addressable distributed file system under the covers. A great asset as a basis when we start looking at things we're going to store in the cloud. So we have the public cloud with SaaS applications. We have the private cloud. And that turns into a vision of needing to provision, having managed separate passwords everywhere and tiling applications everywhere. Remember this vision I talked about. We want to unify application access and delivery. Because you shouldn't have to know whether something's a SaaS app, a Windows app, a thick client app, a published app, a virtualized app. All of them should look the same, okay, to the endpoint, from the endpoint. You don't care about the plumbing. Paul Moritz used to say that a couple of years ago when we started down this cloud path, which is that we want to help our customers get out of the plumbing business. Well, that applies to endpoint apps as well, okay? We also have a new technology we're going to be showing off today, or in this at this conference, called the Thin App Factory. The ability to dynamically and automatically create thin app images and give the iTunes experience for Windows applications. Be able to just click on thin app instances and have them be deployed to your endpoint. Okay? And all of these are going to be glued together for different endpoints, giving a universal user experience on them, doing what we call managing users instead of provisioning to physical devices, this user-centric computing notion, with the right enterprise-level security, provisioning policies, and access policies. So, and it doesn't matter how those apps are delivered. Sometimes we're delivering data, technologies like Dropbox. Other times we're delivering SaaS applications, Windows apps, published apps, thin app apps, and of course, server-hosted desktops as well for the entire desktop. All of these things through one provisioning portal. So tomorrow, you're going to see a demo during the keynote, again, a little early here, of something new called Project Horizon. This used to be called Origami, if you've heard that term. And it's the industry's first unified user management of legacy and cloud applications, providing single sign-on, designed as a service for the web, bridging both the world of SaaS and virtualized Windows together under a unified management example, delivering lower TCO, streamlining the life cycle, being able to handle multiple app types, being able to glue together the future world of cloud SaaS applications and the former world of legacy Windows apps. Okay? Secure identity management. So policy-based delivery of any app to users. So this is a technology preview at this conference. We're also doing more things on the View product line as well as part of this Unity thing in 2011. You'll see us delivering various technologies around more clients, okay? Can't imagine what clients we might be delivering. Offline Mac, I already mentioned that. View Client Local Mode for Macs. Secure Access, our security server for PC over IP. Persona management, the RTO virtual profiles technology, integrated and into View and applied to Win 7 desktops. So these are things, just to be clear, that are coming in the future. These are technologies we are working on, not part of the View 4.5 that we launched. And the industry's best integrated VoIP support, okay, working with partners here to deliver VoIP to virtual desktops. Okay, so at this point I was going to do a really cool demo, okay, only because I went to the wrong room, because my BlackBerry had the wrong room, I wasn't able to get this set up and working here to show you a demo. But what I was going to show you was, I was going to show you a native PC over IP client running on iPad, okay, and that's one of the things that I meant by client proliferation for View. So PC over IP with a very innovative example. You'll see this during Steve Herrod's keynote tomorrow as well, so you'll get another shot at this. And I'm giving a repeat of this session tomorrow, and hopefully I'll be in the right room, so I'll be able to run this as a demo. The cool thing here is it doesn't look like other clients that you've seen. It embraces the user interface in a native way. People don't love iPads because they want to run Windows applications. They embrace the iPad because they love the user experience, okay? So we've actually created various tight integrations in here. When the keyboard comes up, you can either use a Windows keyboard or you can do touch keyboard. The touch keyboard actually has the Windows function keys on it. They've been added to it, okay? So you can control the apps well, okay? You have the option of using, you can grow and shrink the image with finger gestures. You can have a virtual touchpad, a virtual mouse, or virtual arrow keys, or you can move the object's touch with your screen, with your finger, okay? All of those work. So you get to use these devices natively, okay? So I really wanted to show you that, and that's why it was a cool demo, but oh well. And if you're wondering about that picture on the background of my iPad, that is actually the screen background on my iPad. I took it out the window of a plane on a business trip. But anyway, now let's talk about where we're going with all this, where the end goal looks like. Okay, and this is looking more far out. Okay? What do I mean by a virtual workspace in the cloud, collaborative user workspace? Well, it means knitting together these applications to endpoints, okay? Having policy-based provisioning of the applications, enabling them to run anywhere, okay? My workspace, my applications, my data, my settings, it's something that lives in the cloud, and I can access it from any endpoint when I need to at any time. That rich consumer cloud experience delivered for enterprise IT. So what's that going to look like? Well, number one, a virtual workspace with user-centric computing means I'm provisioning individual users, their applications, their settings, their customizations, not physical devices, so I can access it from anywhere. And it means melding together all the personal cloud technology and all your business technology on the same endpoint. IT gets to control the business applications, the SLAs, where data is stored, how it's isolated, how it's protected. While at the same time, the end user can do whatever they want with their personal platform. You want to remember that encapsulation and isolation I mentioned. You want to keep these things separate, isolated, and controlled independently, but deliver a common user experience across them. That's what we mean by this virtual workspace, and that's what we are working on. Unifying them together. So here's what this portal might look like, this Horizon portal. Okay, I have a collection of applications here on here. I've logged in as myself. I have access to a variety of applications. Okay, maybe I don't have access to the payroll application because of my role, but in any event, I don't know from this endpoint whether these applications are thick client apps, thin client apps, published apps, served apps. Okay, all of the above. Okay? I should just be able to click on them, check them out, and have them run on my endpoint, and run them on different endpoint devices. So here's my applications, loaded on a traditional Windows desktop. But if I log in on a Mac, here's those same collection of applications that I checked out delivered on a Mac. Oh, by the way, if I'm on a tablet, I want to see the same apps on the tablet, each delivering the right endpoint experience at the right time. That's what our vision of the future of end-user computing is, okay? The right applications delivered the right way at the right time to the right device. And the endpoint devices are disposable, okay, because my workspace preserves in the cloud. So the aspects of a user-centric cloud workspace like this includes being able to set and provision users in groups, applications of all types, data for the applications, policies associated with devices, remote wipes of data, etc., and a rich end-user experience geared to each platform type, delivering the right content at the right time in the right context. So this is what our phase 3 of our end-user computing strategy looks like. You have a private cloud where we can provision applications of many types, published applications, data in the cloud, traditional desktop applications, VDI, remote desktops, server-hosted desktops, mobile applications, and new applications, things that haven't been invented yet and techniques that haven't been invented yet, out of the private cloud, hosted in the data center, merged and joined together with the public cloud, using the cross-platform portal that I mentioned, the public cloud. Okay, SaaS apps, single sign-on across the collection of SaaS apps in a safe, secure way. VDI desktops in the cloud, access to my private desktop through the cloud. And of course, data and applications. And the end-user workspace, portal, and this SaaS enterprise and SaaS app store model. All automated provisioning, automated directory federation, licensing and tracking of applications, and access management. So now, how's VMware going to succeed at this, Scott? This looks like a great vision, and I see how you have a lot of these technologies to deliver this stuff, but what's different between you and other folks in the cloud? Well, one of them is everyone else looking at cloud computing, or most of the people looking at cloud computing, they're silos. We all know about Windows and their silos, and Microsoft and lock-in, okay? Apple makes great devices, typically client computing devices, but they also have, walled gardens, so to speak, to use the old AOL term. And even people that are perceived as being very open, okay? Well, SaaS and PaaS and IaaS from Google is all about running in their data center, and only their data center, and using only SaaS applications, okay? VMware's a little different than these. VMware's vision of end-user computing is carving up all of these pieces using that encapsulation and isolation principle I mentioned, that virtualization, and deliver the right technology. Heterogeneity is in our DNA. We've been doing it for years in the context of clients, in the context of servers, and now in the context of end-user computing for the cloud. We have the fundamental cloud building blocks, the ability to separate, isolate software from the hardware and software from other layers of software. We have all the key assets required to deliver on this vision. We're the most trusted provider to run in the enterprise or on a vCloud provider, and that's getting launched here at VMworld as well. We have the key end-user assets, all the virtualization assets that we have, application virtualization with ThinApp, and end-user data management and interactions. Okay? So what the benefits of this world is, bringing the consumer benefits, consumer cloud benefits to the end user, is giving end users freedom, next generation collaborative workspace, context-aware experience, completely device and platform independent, flexible access to your data from anywhere at any time. And for IT, delivering this with all the enterprise controls, secure policy driven by service delivery across clouds, both within the data center and across clouds, CapEx and OpEx controls, security and compliance, and simplified automated user management. So what does end-user computing look like in 2015? Well, it looks like this. It looks like whatever device you want to run on, with whatever applications you want there, running natively. So my content, my applications, both corporate and personal, accessible on my devices anytime, anywhere. That's what end-user computing looks like in 2015. So I hope you found my comments provocative and interesting, and I have time for one or two questions, if there are any. Yes? Mm-hmm. Yes, there sure has. The question there was, have there been any tests conducted on PC over IP over the WAN? Yes, we've been doing a lot around the WAN. As a matter of fact, if you run any of the VMworld labs, you'll discover that they are all running using PC over IP over the WAN. We have 480 labs running in parallel, every lab session, and they're actually being hosted in the cloud. They're hosted at Terramark and Verizon. Okay, so you can see it running here. So yes, PC over IP works great over the WAN. There are controls where you can reduce the bandwidth latency characteristics. Okay, there's papers on it, but yes, PC over IP does run very well over the WAN. I'm not sure. I'll have to get back to you on that one. Some of them, sure. They probably are. I didn't check on that before I came here. Yes. We're not talking about, Horizon is a technology preview. We're not talking about the delivery time frame or anything about the business licensing about it here, okay? The folks, there's actually dedicated sessions to it, okay, in the catalog. So you go there and they'll talk more about the details about what it does and how it works, but they're not going to be talking about the delivery commitments here, the conference. Well, we obviously are not going to comment on anything around pending possible M&A things like that. That said, we acquired a technology that does persona management last year. It's called RTO Virtual Profiles, okay? We did not finish integrating it in time for 4.5. So we have that. We also have lots of partners, though, because persona management is actually a complicated area. And RTO is actually, the RTO technology, Virtual Profiles, which is also available as a separate product, and still is, by the way, even though it's not integrated yet. RTO Virtual Profiles. It's actually highly complementary to Liquidware Labs, which is the one you mentioned. So when you look at these persona technologies, just to answer this quickly without going into the gory details of it, there's actually 3 broad categories of persona technologies. One of them is persona workspaces or personalized workspaces. Another is profile segmentation. Another is profile streaming. RTO Virtual Profiles is profile streaming. Liquidware Labs is profile segmentation. So they're actually complementary without getting into all the gory details. Okay?